Greetings, it's Jeff Compiler and welcome to the Introduction to Blender for Game Developer series. In this video we will have a look at one of the most important tools for mesh construction and look through its different modes. So the tool is called Extrude Region, and to use that I will go to the modeling or the edit mode. For example, select the top face, and now we can choose this tool. Of course, to use that, the basic one, you can press E on your keyboard and it will allow you to extrude a piece of your geometry. So basically the same thing you can do with here. There is Extrude Region tool, so you select that, select one face, and if you will drag this yellow gizmo, it will allow you to extrude a piece of your geometry once again. So what you will have here, you will have one face, the one that you have selected, or any other piece of geometry, just moves a little bit from its origin position. You still have the same set of faces that were before the extrusion, but what you've got is the loop of new faces connected from one side of the object to the other. So basically you just extruded one part of it, you created a set of looped faces or any other pieces of geometry between one side of the mesh and the other. And of course, by the way, if you want to select a loop of faces, for example like here, all of them around, you can hold Alt and left mouse button click and it will allow you to select the whole loop. Okay, so what will happen if, for example, instead of dragging this gizmo, I dragged somewhere inside this yellow circle? It will allow me to extrude everything still the same way as before, but not alongside the orthogonal vector, the normal vector basically of the face. It may have its own applications, but it's much more chaotic. So, for example here, if we'll go back to another selection mode, for example the edge mode, and you can of course try to extrude the edge either by the random amount or by a normal vector, which will allow you to do that, as you can see, by the normal of the edge. So basically you will create a new face. Of course, you might have to probably adjust the direction of the normal of this face, but still it is possible to construct any kind of the object you want, and of course any shape you would like. Here it may not be the best example of what you can create of that, but for example, if we will use faces over here, we can just simply extrude it upwards. For example, scale that, extrude it once again, scale it down, and you will get something similar to a house. Of course, it's not the most beautiful house ever, but still, it is something. Yeah, it's something that is pretty easily done using this extrude. And of course, it doesn't really have to be the one-floored house. You can, for example, by moving it here, you can extrude one more part of it, let's say, here, and it create several more floors. Something like that. Pretty simple, just using transform and extrude region tool. Yeah, the one that is by default over here. The one that we didn't see yet, its application is of course to the vertex selection mode. So if you press vertex select or 1, you can also extrude one single vertex. Of course, it's not really visible because there is only an edge connecting one vertex to another. But in case you would need to construct a mesh, let's say from scratch, you will really find that tool useful. The second tool that we have here, so if you have Extrude Region, if you press that, and we can drag and select any other option of it. For example, if I select an Extrude Manifold, as you can see, it even has the description of what this tool could have been doing. So basically, you can see here, if we will have this tool opened, and maybe we'll do something like that, an extrusion. First of all, we don't see anything at all. Yeah, for example, as you can see here. Why? Because by default, if you make an extrusion using this extrude manifold, and your extrusion, your pieces of new geometry overlap with the ones that were already created, you will get nothing basically. It will snap together and won't do anything. Despite, for example, the basic extrude regions, if you extrude it outwards, it will create the outward extrusion of an object. Yes, we can see those faces, and if you make that inwards, it will just, let's say, out of the cube, you'll create an empty box. Yeah, but it's not an empty box because here you have one side, here is another face, yeah, and those two faces are in the same place. So in order to omit such things that several faces are appearing in the same exact place, Extrude Manifold allows us to negate such an effect. So basically, if I extrude manifold once again, it will not allow me to create something. So we can have a look at other stuff. So basically, if I'll do something like that, I can try to extrude manifold this thing, and it allows me to simply extrude an object. Once again, if I do that, it will just drag and drop it. Okay. So once again here, if I'll do that, it will allow me to just simply use an extrusion. And as you can see here, it just removed a new face. Yeah, the two faces, despite the two faces, created only one, removing this edge in the middle. But if I'll use just simple extrude, it will stick to that face that it was here. So basically, an interesting variation of the tool, of the extrusion tool, an interesting variation of it. But whether to use it or not, it is just a question for you, whether you see the need to do that. The next variation of the extrusion tool is called extrude along normals. So basically, as was previously shown, if you just select several faces, it will just extrude them along normals, of course, at the same direction by the same distance. Yeah, so basically right now we don't have an exact square because here, here, and here we have exactly the same distance. Yeah, and as you can see, it doesn't really matter where I select that, it will allow me to select along the normals of the faces. Of course, if I do something like this, it will create an extrusion which is connected to the neighboring cell. But, for example, the next tool, Extrude Individual, allows us to extrude individual parts of the object. For example, as you can see here, each of the faces that were selected made an individual extrusion. So with that, for example, in mind, having extruded several of them, we can change the selection mode to individual origins, and if we scale, we'll be able to create multiple, for example, bumps or multiple buttons, yeah, at the same time, for example. Alright, so the last tool on the list that we have here is called Extrude To Cursor. What does it do? First of all, it doesn't allow you to select anything, because if you press somewhere, it already starts doing something. So basically here, for example, I can select this face over here on the top. If I go to Extrude To Cursor, if I click somewhere, it creates an extrusion up to the place where I left mouse button click. Okay. Of course, it allows you to quickly set up a shape, any shape you would like. Any shape, it will take a little bit longer if you just use your extrusion and rotation skill. But as you can see, once again, this is kind of this tool is kind of pretty specific, so whether to use that or not is just your decision for your own purposes. Alright, and last but not least, the kind of important piece of information about this extrusion tool is that Extrude tool is one of the tools on the list which, if you perform the operation, for example right here, if I do that, somehow start the extrusion, and if I right mouse button click in the middle of moving, yeah, I still didn't release left mouse button. If I cancel the operation, it still did the operation. Yeah, so for example, if I move something, and I cancel it, it didn't move. In case of extrude, it does. Yeah, so basically if I right mouse button, it creates an extrusion in the same place. Yeah, so basically if I'll scale the thing, you will see that it actually created this set of faces in this case, but they were not visible because their size, their area was 0. Yeah, we just don't see them, but they exist. It's an important thing to note because later on you may have problems with overlapping vertices. Of course, it's not that really problematic, but you might just forget about them and then wonder why your model is not working properly as you would expect it to be. Well, if you just click around using this extrusion tool and forget to remove it completely, yeah, the effects of the unwanted extrusion, you will get something like that. To remove those duplicated vertices, like here for example, yeah, we have them. To remove that, I can just select everything by A, then I can press M, yeah, in order to merge, and here we have option by distance. If I do that, it will remove all the vertices that are close enough to each other. Of course, I can specify the distance, the merge distance of it, of the operation, but by the default value, in most of the cases, is pretty fine. So basically for now, as you could have seen here, if we do it once again, we have the communication message here that we have removed 8 vertices from the scene from our object. So this is basically the way how you can fix in case you've made several mistakes using this extrusion tool. Alright, so this is pretty much it concerning this extremely powerful and important tool for the modeling. As you can see, having any object, you can extrude any part of it, creating a completely new mesh or a completely new shape. So, once again, I advise you to play around with the tool in order for you to feel comfortable, and I will wait for you in the next video. So, if you found this video interesting or helpful, give a like, post a comment, and of course subscribe. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.